Creating is hard as hell, but community can make all the difference. Join We Create Daily, our community of storytellers of all kinds who, like you, are looking to advance their craft, careers, and creativity. Join our membership community today at thecreatedaily.com. That's thecreatedaily.com. And make your creative journey a little easier alongside like-minded storytellers just like you. I know the type of life that I want to live, but it's scary. You know, it's scary to actually really, really embrace it in terms of, you know, being able to create on my own terms, right? It's like, well, where you going to get money from? Being able to work just a few hours a day, maybe having sprints of work, you know, maybe it's because we're making a movie. And so there is a sprint of 3 months or 6 months or something like that. But like, this ain't it. And the way that I'm working now is not it. So that's why the building of multiple streams of income, but it's not just multiple streams of income. Then what do we have to make sure we're making our money work for us? We did it. Woo, woo. We're here. We are here with a whole podcast. A whole podcast. Not half a podcast. A whole podcast.
That's right. 100.
Welcome to the Creative Cut Up Podcast, a lively and honest space for storytellers that sits at the intersection of craft, business, and independence. I'm Felicia Pride, a writer, director, producer, head honey and honey child, and head storyteller of the Create Daily, a platform I founded in 2012 to help storytellers, especially those of us who are historically excluded, thrive creatively and professionally. And I'm here with my co-host because we got some cutting up to do.
We sure do. I'm Dria Rowland, the creative executive at Honey Child and a writer and producer.
Yes, she is.
And I'm Georgette Pierre, a voice actor and producer. You can hear it, right?
Oh, we hear that voice, honey. We hear the voice. So join us weekly where we talk shop and smack and share the good, the bad, and the ugly. And from 3 different perspectives, which I love, providing tangible tips to support your creative practice, your career, and your artist self. Because we all know that being an artist is hard as hell.
Oof, say that.
But the Creative Cut Up is here to help. Shall we begin, ladies?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Welcome to a new installment of the Creative Cut Up Podcast.
We here.
Yes. So it's so funny because my manager loves to call me entrepreneurial. She'll be at meetings. She'll be like, you know, Felicia's very entrepreneurial. Felicia's entrepreneurial. And I'm like, okay, Diane, but she's right. I am the daughter of a salesman. My father was always starting businesses, some good, some not, but I've always had this sort of entrepreneurial spirit. And before I came into Hollywood, I was running my own consultancy, which essentially I was an impact producer. So my clients were people like PBS and Participant Media and NPR. But when I came into Hollywood, I realized how much, even though we're all freelancers for the most part, nobody really wants to talk about that, right? TV writers are freelancers, okay? We do not get vacation days, okay? We are 1099 employees, you know what I mean? But I realized that I feel like Hollywood is not very conducive or encouraging. I wouldn't say conducive. I would say encouraging of entrepreneurship. And I think that's by design. I think that if more artists were entrepreneurial, we would see the ways that we don't need the business. We would interact with the business in different ways. And I think it would disrupt the business in ways that Hollywood does not want to be disrupted. So that's what I want to talk about today is entrepreneurship, multiple streams of income, ownership, all those good things for artists.
I feel like it's so crazy. Like you never stop freelancing.
Talk about it, Dria, please. Oh, man.
I came from journalism and that was like freelance. And now I'm like, it's still going though. When do I get the big girl job? Or it was still years when I had like 6 1099s. My mom was like, why you got so many jobs? I'm like, that is how it goes. If you don't have so many jobs, you're not eating.
That's how it goes.
What you want to eat.
That's how it goes. I mean, we all come from journalism, TV news in that way. And I just remember having to chase down check because those media companies, child,
they play in your face.
You have to hunt down invoices and all that. And that's the thing, like there is a difference between freelancing and entrepreneurship, right? And so I kind of had to make the shift mentally. How do I start to think like an entrepreneur? How do I see opportunities and take advantage of those things? How do I make a way for myself? The challenge is, how do we finance TV projects? How do we finance film projects without going through these systems? Of course, there are many ways, and that's what we're going to talk about some today. But I think that's where kind of stops us in our tracks as artists. We got to go through the system because this is who has the money. And I'm kind of like, do we?
Right.
Are there different ways to work with the system? Are there ways for us to be owning things and making our own way?
Something I also thought about, because it was really loud during the pandemic. Everyone wanted to jump in, start a business without really knowing how to start a business, right? I am one of them. I have a company, but I formed a second company. I don't know what the hell I was thinking about. Well, like, what the fuck are we doing? We're just making LLCs out okay. So, but the one thing that ended up happening, I don't even want to say at the end of the pandemic, but like even like 2 years later, everyone was going after this entrepreneurial life. And then everybody was like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And so I even want to delve into the conversation around multiple streams of income. Doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be attached to you running a business, you being a sole proprietor. I just quickly learned that you just have to start being very strategic on where you are landing, where you are placing your efforts, your energy, and how much of it could you reduce from a labor standpoint of, do I have to be in 5 different places to make this money? And so I would love to kind of even delve into or explore, what does that look like from the standpoint of juggling multiple streams of income in a real way, manageable way?
It's interesting because I think more about financial freedom, creative freedom, and professional freedom more than I think about entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
For me, entrepreneurship is a way to get there, but also even that, to your point, Georgette, can be its own master. That can be draining. So I'm all about, how can I be financially independent in the next 3 to 5 years, right? How can I have the strongest of fuck you funds so that I can walk away from any position, right? How can I have such a nest egg so that I can take 6 months off? Right? How can I continue? Also, I think for me, a part of the freedom is, how can I keep my lifestyle at a level where I'm not becoming a master, where my lifestyle is not a master to me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a challenge I've seen out here in LA, and I got caught up into it until I was like, wait, hold up. Let's downsize. Let's look at what we spending money on. Let's put this money towards the fuck you fund, so that's what I'm really would love to like delve in more, is us thinking about freedom. Cause I think a lot, what happens, even if you're making a ton of money, your lifestyle gets bigger, you're spending more. That means you have to be more beholden to the business. That means you have to take shit you don't want to take. That means you have to make decisions you don't want to make. That means you can't leave when you want to leave. And I just want freedom. Mm-hmm. That's it.
I think I'm still making that shift in my mind between making money and working toward freedom, or how do I say, building my enterprise up enough to where it can sustain itself outside of these traditional systems. So right now, I still very much feel like, okay, you need more money, get another job. But I don't think that's how an entrepreneur thinks. An entrepreneur is a little bit more strategic. And my mom was always like, you need to be thinking about passive income. I'm like, girl, this active income is taking all my capacity. I don't even know I'm going to get to the passive, but she's right. Like, we need to be thinking in different ways.
I feel like right now, I was having a conversation with my homegirl. I feel like I'm pulling triple duty right now to work towards the freedom, right? So I'm staff on a show, which I always look at as like a day job, like a stable day job for 20 weeks, a stable day job, right? Then I develop outside of that and I write features outside of that. And the reason why I develop and write features from a practical standpoint is multiple streams of income, right? Features in particular. I always tell TV writers, if you can write features, please write features. The thing that got me through the strike, I want to say, is the fact that I write features and I was developing a lot. So I'm doing that outside of the room, right? And then we're building the Create Daily and Honey Child as well. So I have these sort of 3 different areas, but I know the plan. I'm being very strategic about it, but it's a lot, right? It is a lot to try to juggle those things. But the building of it, I know we're building something, and we're focusing on ways to have what your mama's talking about is the passive income, but it's definitely pulling triple duty in order to get there.
And you mentioned earlier about Hollywood not really being hospitable to that. And I think that's so real what you're saying. If you tell that to people, they're going to be like, oh, you got a lot going on, or you're all over the place. And it's like, no, I see the bigger picture, and all of these things are serving my ultimate goal for me. But the business, they don't see it that way. Like, I remember this was recent. I was talking to a comedian who has his own management company, and he was trying to work with the network I work for. And my colleague said, oh, he seems unfocused. He has too much going on. I was like, why can't he explore his interests and explore multiple streams of income? Why does that make him unfocused? Like, it was disappointing to me that was a turnoff to them.
Well, I think one, it's because folks like to put you in a box so that they can wrap their heads around it. But then 2, folks want to put you in a box so that they can control you, right? Mm-hmm. So I found that that's what, to me, the Hollywood thing is. It's like, how can we exert control over folks, right? We do not want them planning their own destiny. We want to be their destiny. And then also, I was very scared, I'll be honest, to start teaching courses and workshops once I sort of broke into Hollywood. I've been teaching courses and workshops for years. I've been a teaching artist for a very, very long time. But once I became a TV writer, I'm like, oh, I can't do that because that's not what TV writers do. But I was like, you know what? We need to get this money to make tender. So let's run these workshops, and having to get over what are people going to think of me if I'm teaching workshops sort of idea. But then now I'm to the point was like, do I care more about what people think, or do I want to retire in the Mediterranean? Like, I need to really get clear on that. And that question always helps me make the decision very easily, right? I have to care less what people think, and I have to move in this direction of my freedom fight, right? Like, I have to move in the direction that's what's going to make me happy. And it's interesting too. My therapist told me, she was like, walking your purpose, which I talk about a lot. It's like telling stories that center Black people, especially Black women, and making sure those stories get to the people. She's like, that's one thing, but also living the life that you're supposed to live and the lifestyle that you're supposed to have is also part of the purpose. And I was like, ooh. And the amount of work that is required in Hollywood, the amount of free work that is required with Hollywood, I don't see how that's sustainable. I don't see how that's financially sustainable. I don't see how that's physically sustainable. So that's why I'm like, how can I build something that is sustainable, that is intentional, and that will be conducive to the life that I ultimately want to live?
Has anyone had that experience where you got to live a little bit of the way you want to live? I remember I had a job that was able to pay my rent for a few months, and I was working at a job that I hated. I left it, and I was able to just, for those 3 months while that rent was paid, live the way I wanted to live, wake up every day and do exactly what I wanted. And it felt so good. I had to go back to work after those 3 months, but I've been trying to get back there ever since.
I love that. I feel like maybe the strike, and that was a stressful way of doing it, but that was how to live from a rest standpoint. It's crazy how ironic that a strike was the only time that I really got some major rest. But I told myself I want to do a sabbatical this year. So that's something that I'm working towards, to try to do a 1 month sabbatical. But again, I know the type of life that I want to live, but it's scary. It's scary to actually really, really embrace it in terms of being able to create on my own terms, right? It's like, well, where you going to get money from? Being able to work just a few hours a day, maybe having sprints of work, maybe it's because we're making a movie. And so there is a sprint of 3 months or 6 months or something like that. But this ain't it. And the way that I'm working now is not it. So that's why the building of multiple streams of income, but it's not just multiple streams of income. Then we have to make sure making our money work for us. I'm in these groups that talk about investing and finances and all the things, because that's another piece of, okay, yes, I can be an entrepreneur and have multiple streams of income, but if my money ain't working for me, it's a futile exercise.
That's something that I was thinking about too, right? Like, I think sometimes when we think about even the multiple streams and the financial freedom, we're not also talking about how we have to make our money work for ourselves and what are we doing to make sure that counts. So I didn't grow up in a household where money was managed well. And I mean, blown out credit card debt, I'm like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. I could pay this bill 30 days later. Like, as long as I'm within 30 days, this was a mindset, right? And so the conversations, I started having conversations about my CPA, about what I wanted my financial future to look like. And that was something that I just didn't think that I had the capacity to do, because I was just like, I don't know anything about money. But you know what, Georgette, you do know that you're working in a business where you can get $1 million check written out to you, a 6-figure check written out to you. Let your CPA know your plans. And then who else or what else do you need to do to get back on track financially? And so I think also the piece of the financial freedom that people just don't think about, at least for me, was like also getting back on track to make sure like I'm even at a place where things are getting paid on time, and that I'm paying myself, and that I'm actually budgeting things out. Budgeting drove me nuts. How are we planning our money? So we have to start planning our money differently and thinking about how to understand money differently. That shit confuses me still. But for the first time, I'm like, oh, so beyond just paying my rent in New York, there's other shit I can do with my money. Those are the things that beyond the multiple streams, you got to understand money better and plan your money better before you start talking about you want to make $1 million checks here, there, everywhere. If you can't manage $100, you're not going to manage $1 million.
Acting on your ideas is a form of self-love. And when I decided to write the Creative Comeback Workbook and Journal, it was with you in mind. Storytellers with stories inside of you that you need to get out into the world. But life, fear, uncertainty has a way of leaving us stuck. But no more. It's time to reclaim our creative practice and get unstuck. The Creative Comeback Workbook and Journal can help you get back on creative track. 30 days of dynamic prompts, exercises to stimulate creativity, alongside motivational quotes, journal pages, and more. If you're ready to create again, get your copy of the Creative Comeback Workbook and Journal today at creativecomeback.com. That's creativecomeback.com. Because it's never too late to become the artist you always wanted to be.
Okay, lottery winner. Okay, think about it.
I was listening to this podcast. They talked about the capacity to have, the ability to just hold money.
Yeah,
is a skill.
I'm bad at that.
is a skill, a place, an energy, a plane that I had to work on tremendously, right? I would say that I wasn't bad with money until I would pay my bills on time, but I just never had a lot of money so my family, we lost our house in 91. We lost everything because of my father's drug addiction. So his car, his house, everything. My mom moved us back to Baltimore. So I never put two and two together until therapy, of course. I lost my house. I bought a house in Baltimore when I shouldn't have during 2008. The housing bubble. Bought a house. I lost my house, I want to say in 2011, maybe something like that. Took like 6 years to actually go through the whole process. It was one of the most depressing, traumatic things I've ever had to go through. I had a lot of shame with it. And that really, really, really fucked me up financially. Not just like from a practical standpoint, but in my head. You know, we talk about, we're not good with money. Talk about really telling myself a lot of shit. So coming out of that hole and that emotional hole, one of the biggest, best things I've ever done for myself now is every check that I receive, I have a percentage breakdown, every check of where these things go. It's based on this methodology called profit first. So basically it is the idea where you pay yourself first. You pay taxes off the jump, 25%, goes to a tax account. I have a tax account. I just put the money in there. Then my commissions, pay that off jump, whoever that might be. It might be manager and agent and lawyer. It might just be manager and lawyer, whatever the case is, goes out the door. Operations means honey child and my own personal expenses, 25%. I have a debt account for any debt that I may have accrued, but I want to pay off. I have a profit account that's like 2%. So that means the business is always profitable because you start with paying yourself profit versus putting all your money in one pot. And then from there, trying to extract things, you already make yourself profitable. I have a housing account for the Costa Rica compound, 13%, boom. And then I also have my emergency savings, right? So that's usually between 15 and 20%. The moment I started doing that, I've probably been doing that for the last 2.5 years, the shit just adds up. You just see it add up and it's so easy and seamless and it just adds up. I've been able to pay off my car. I've been able to have a very healthy emergency savings. I've been able to keep honey child afloat because I've become much more disciplined in a very simple way, but in a very intentional way. I'm like, I'm going to make sure that I have money in the bank, period. So that really opened me up and changed my life, and also investments. So I have a full financial planner. We have investments. I have both a 401k and IRA. I have a pension. I have my WGA pension, and I also have a broker account that I put money towards too. And it just changed my life. It changed my life. And our conversations that we have about not being good about money, we have to work through, but we can put these types of practices in place while we're still working through the lies that we have consumed about ourselves.
The Profit First, was that a book? Was that a resource? Was that something
yes.
that you, okay.
It's a book called, I believe it's called Profit First, but he recommends the certain buckets. I remix the buckets for myself, but the buckets, it is for business owners, but I feel like freelancers could use that. Because I remember back in the day, my taxes, honey, I put no money away for the taxes. So my back taxes were crazy. I remember when I finally paid off my back taxes like a few years ago, I was like, I would never be in this situation again. I can't, this is not it. So as freelancers, we're always kind of behind. So one way to get in front of it for me, that process was just changed my life.
I think that's so important to put those systems and processes in place. But I think sometimes as freelancers or entrepreneurs, you feel like you don't make a stable amount. So it's hard to do a budget or a process because it seems stable. You know what I mean? So I think you have to at least still have that framework, like you're saying, have those buckets, have your system, stick to it as much as you can. So much you might not hit the mark, but give yourself grace and get back on track. At least you have a plan that you can come back to.
Absolutely. Because some checks may have to all go to something else, right? But I know that this is the plan. And even that is a strategic decision. Like, okay, this whole check is going to go to this because I want to take care of that. Or this whole check, I want to go into emergency savings. I'm going to hold on investments this month because I want to get my savings up. But that just having a plan, because I just didn't have a plan. And I had the assumption that I didn't have enough money. Even though I didn't have enough money, the assumption was I can't save or invest because it wasn't profit first. So when we start paying ourselves first, it just changed your perspective, right? Put your taxes in first, put your savings in first, and then you just got to work with what you got left. And all those motherfuckers who are calling you can keep calling you, but at least you know you got your savings you're building up, right? Because all they're going to do is keep calling you. That's the other thing that I learned after, especially going through the house, losing my house, which to me was a rock bottom. I was still alive. You know what I mean? The motherfuckers was calling. I'd hang up on them. You know, that's what it is.
It's funny because these businesses also, they have insurance on the fucking debt that people owe them. And that shit goes away. They get that money back.
I'm like, if you don't get out my face.
Okay, like, y'all be all right.
You will be.
Also, credit is completely made up. It didn't even come out to the 70s. Why is everybody buying into this scam? But that's a whole nother topic.
So let's talk about some of the multiple streams of income that we've dabbled in, that Honey Child has, that Create Daily has. I can start off again. I tell you that I staff. Before the room that I'm in now, I hadn't staffed for 1.5 years. I was developing that time, which is up and down in terms of income. But I also write features. So I develop TV shows. I write features. I also continue to do speaking engagements. Speaking engagements was a huge thing when I was an author. So that's something I actually want to do more of. I also want to start writing books again. I thought I didn't have any books in me, but there's a few books that I do have in me. So I'm looking to do that. Well, through Honeychild, we have gotten income through sponsorships. So we started to do a few sponsorships with publishing companies and brands. We had our Honey Insider program. We also have our Patreon now, which is called the Honeycomb. We really want to build that up as a place where we can be developing, where we can be making content. So that's content that's supported by the community. For the Create Daily, we have our classes. We have advertising for the Create Daily. We have our Recreate Daily community. We have our Creative Comeback workbook and journal. We have our 21-day Creative Comeback challenge. And now that we've launched these things, one of our big goals is to really expand our reach. And then also residuals. I do get paid residuals, which thank God, hallelujah, from Grey's Anatomy and Queen Sugar. So I'm very grateful for those. So those different incomes that are coming through. Have y'all dabbled in additional?
Yeah. Oh, always. And still trying to
yeah, Dria don't play. Dria's hustle, honey. Dria is a hustler.
So I have a full-time freelance job. I consider that the 9 to 5. A lot of people be scared to be fully entrepreneurs. So they like to do that on the side while they have a full-time job. I think I'm one of those people right now. I got one toe in, one toe out while I try to figure out how to scale the outside things to make them the main thing. So got the full-time freelance. I do Honeychild. I do events for a bookstore. I do copywriting gigs and I do consulting. So working might be a small ad agency and they need social media strategy or branding strategy. I do projects like that as well. And I would like to get paid for speaking engagements. That is a goal that I have. And also writing books as well. I got some children's stories in my heart that I need to get out. So those are the things I have and the things that I want to do.
I echo the speaking engagements and the writing books. So similar to you, Dria, it's the freelance 9 to 5. That's been the consistent mainstream of income. Honeychild and the Create Daily. Voice acting ended up proving to be very helpful at points where I was like, woo, I wasn't expecting this check. I've been unemployed for a year. This could pay 3 months of rent in New York. So thank you. So that was helpful when you're booking things or the clients re-upping your contract. And then I started doing some consulting work. And so the consulting ranged from production strategy, creative ideation. And so one of my former bosses / mentors, she works for an event center in Seattle. And so sometimes she just needed help creating decks, but she also needed ideas for things that her venue can perform and do. And so we came from obviously the entertainment side of things before she went into the nonprofit side of things. And so I was consulting with her for a year. And then people that just want to have a thought partner, that's also parts of the consulting work that I do as well. So they're thinking, hey, Georgette, I want to do a podcast, or, I know you're on the producing side of things. We have an idea that we want to do some digital content for. So that as well.
Child, we out here hustling. Okay. But I think that's the thing, is not hustling for hustling's sake. How do we make sure that our hustling can actually help us achieve whatever goals that we want to have is the next step for folks to be thinking about. It's like, how can we make it really intentional and also really make sure that it's going towards our goals?
I just wanted to also double back on Dria talking about scaling. I think a lot of us want to move away from having the structure of a traditional job. And so how do you land or get to a place where you can scale the things that you want to do and you feel more creatively aligned with? And I know that piece I'm still figuring out as well.
Because entrepreneurship is not for everyone. It's very difficult. Also, balancing multiple things is not for everyone. So I think that folks, we just need to be honest with ourselves about that. But I think, again, what is the life that we want to live? Being honest about that and being able to accept that. And then how can we work in a way that will get us to that life? And also, how can we be living that life now in different ways, in small ways and big ways, as we are preparing ourselves for that life? But I think one of the biggest things, again, is getting better with our finances, getting better with our time, are probably the two big pieces for me that are most important. on my entrepreneurial journey, because I could be an entrepreneur all day. If the money ain't adding up, if the accounts ain't growing, then what's the point?
I sometimes think about this word that I learned in Sunday school as a kid, stewardship.
Yes.
I don't know why it always comes back to me. Like, am I being a good steward
of my money?
I managing what I have, you know?
Absolutely.
And the Lord told me I wasn't. I ain't gonna lie. He told me to get it together.
Child.
He waiting on me.
Child, listen.
I'm the problem.
But I also found that I had to start listening to folks and talking to folks who this is their world, this is what they do. Because like you said, Georgette, I also, my family, we weren't very savvy with money. And so I had to find outside resources, but I also had to work through therapy that, yes, I can get good with money. I can learn how money works. This is not rocket science. I think there's this idea that we can't do it for some reason, but I'm like, oh no, I can learn how the stock market works. I can learn how investing works and all of that. So yeah, I've been on that journey for a minute now and it's paying off. The work works in any way that you slice it, dice it. The work works, especially when you're consistent with it.
Yeah, I just want to move past my fear of squandering the money again because I have more tools. Like I know I had a double income at one point and I was buying Louboutin. I was doing Jimmy Choo's. I was doing all the wrong things. And I had a small amount of credit card debt at that time. And then it just ballooned. And so part of me is like, there's this nervousness of, will I do the same thing again? Will I be able to handle more money that's entrusted to me? And so working through that.
Yes. But I also would say figuring out why you were spending the way that you were. Like getting to the root of that. I know like during the pandemic, I was just spending money, girl. It was me and Postmates and vintage secondhand stores. Where was I going? Why was I buying all these clothes? But clearly for me, that was like a mechanism of dealing with the chaos. So finding out the root, I think, is helpful for us because then we can be addressing the root, which will help us not repeat the thing again, right? And showing ourselves grace. Because the thing is too, is that we're all super talented. The one thing I get frustrated about is that I think that everybody should be rich. Though as talented as we all are, all of us should be rich, right? And the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of fucking money in the world. It is so much money in the world. So one thing that I'm working on too is just my relationship with that energy. Like money's easy to make. Money is easy to make. Money comes to me. It is easy to make. That is the energy that I'm trying to attract so that if it comes and goes, I know it'll continue to come to me.
I'm in that space as well. That's so real. Yeah. I was taking this workshop and it's basically like you treating money like a bad boyfriend. So why is it going to love you back? You got to really look at it as something that's abundant and unlimited and something that can come to you with ease. I have a really hard time dissociating struggle with money and with worth. I mean, my parents just, they drill. You got to work hard. You got to work hard. And now I'm looking around like everybody ain't working that hard and they got that ain't legit
at all. That ain't child, it is not. Like I'm sitting on these calls with producers and whatnot and I'm working my ass. I'm like, wait a minute. Everybody making more money on me than this call. Something ain't right.
And I'm doing the most.
Right.
Right.
I absolutely believe in the energetic aspect of things and about money and really try to work through that.
Y'all, one time I was reading this article and it was asking famous people about their money philosophies. The makeup artist Bobbi Brown was talking about basically being broke in New York when she first got there. And her dad was like, instead of trying to figure out how to cut back, why don't you figure out how to make more? And I think that I took that a little bit too literal because I'm like, I'll just get another check. I'll find another check. No, you still also got to manage what you get while you make more.
Yes.
You got to do a little bit of both.
You got to do a little bit of both. And I found when I first, especially I got into a little bit of money, starting TV writing, film writing. I got caught up a little bit. I said, oh, look at me. And I said, whoa, girl. Like
too much dip on your chip.
Too much. Like the drip was too much. I said, let me cut back because what I'm finding is that I see that how expensive the drip is. And I don't want that. You know what I mean? I don't want that life where I see folks who are in jobs that they hate in this business or have to choke down a lot of shit because the mortgage is high. And I said, I don't want it. I don't want it.
I also think as Black people, sometimes we feel entitled or like we deserve these things, you know?
Yeah.
We've been working so hard all our life. Like we should live nice. And I get it, but it's always moderation.
Yes. I think everybody deserves that period where you get in some money to spend a little. But then you got to stop.
Be intentional about your spending.
You got to stop and then find out what's really important to you, your values, not be trying to keep up with the Joneses. And really be focused on what the life you want to live. Maybe your life is you want to be living big time, but you know what that's going to take, right? So just being clear on what it's going to take for the life that you're trying to live. And I know myself, I'm like, shit, get me down to my little house in the Mediterranean for my 10 bedroom house in the Mediterranean for $2,000 a month. And that's my only bill. Okay. Like, come on.
Drip comes at a cost, but as long as
drip comes at a cost, honey, it comes at a cost. It really does.
But if you know how to manage it and you believe in the energy and align with the energy of it coming to you easily and frequently, we should be good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I also just excess to me also isn't, it doesn't work for me in that way. I realize that I don't need excess.
I feel like because I've experienced copious amounts of credit card debt, things that I used to like buy carelessly, I don't want to do that anymore. It's not in me. So I feel like there has at least been some progression on when I do get my come up. It's going to be like, okay, so let's hold this and let's figure out a true plan before we start spending it, before we start buying things haphazardly. So yeah, I feel that with the excess. Like I used to want those things.
My thing is, I don't want a mortgage. I want to buy something outright. I want to buy something in cash. That's what I'm working for. Because my thing is, that's the biggest expense. And if I don't have that hanging on me, when I tell you, I will tell everybody where to go and how to go and when to do it. Because I don't have to pay no housing. Yes. Do you know what I mean? So for me, now the drip is this housing fund. And it's funny because there's a bunch of artists who are buying houses in cash in Baltimore for that reason. Like, you don't have to worry about that. You own your shit outright. Child. I paid off my car. I just was so like, whoo. Yeah.
It feels so good to pay.
And I will ride that car to the wheels come off, honey. Okay. I am like a new car. No, thank you. No, thank you.
I earned this.
Yes. Yes. Well, this has been great. I feel like as artists, we don't talk about money a lot, multiple streams of income and all that good stuff. So this is super, super inspiring as we stay on our journeys of freedom, of money, of wealth is a word too. That's like, but no, I want to be wealthy. I'm very clear on that. So this takes us to a segment that we like to call How We Create, which is where we share all forms of inspiration that may have stopped us in our tracks, made us laugh, had us shouting, or even reminded us to rest. I'll go. So one of the couples who's been very inspiring to me on this journey of financial freedom, they call themselves Our Rich Journey, which you can find them on Instagram. It's a Black couple who fired. Fire is a word for financial independence, retire early. It's a movement started by some white guys or some white people. There are some values in there that I don't necessarily agree with. But this Black couple retired at before 40. They retired to Portugal. They have kids and so inspiring. They both worked in the government. They did a lot that I wouldn't do, though. I'll be honest. To fire, like they was like sanding furniture and selling it, like shit I would never do. But I've been inspired by their journey, so I follow them. I watch all their YouTube videos. I took their course. They sell a lot of courses, and they have this whole community of people. But just seeing people who have chosen a different way and can live on their own terms is very inspiring to me. So Our Rich Journey is my entry.
Oh, I love that. Okay. So I am currently, y'all been in my audiobook bag. I'm like, oh, I didn't think I would like audiobooks like that, even though I got a bunch of books I haven't read physically yet. But currently listening to The Courage to be Disliked by Fumitake Koga and Ichiro Kashimi. I don't know if I'm saying their name right, but it's this idea that in order to be free to live this happy, authentic life, you need to have the courage to be disliked. And okay, say it again for the people in the front. Say it again for the people in the front. Okay. So it's the way they go about it is you're navigating the advice of this Japanese philosopher. They hinge on retraining your mind to accept yourself as you are, and in turn to accept others as they are. And so the audiobooks are interesting because sometimes it's not the voice of the author. So the way they're reading it, I could do without
reading it. That's why you're like, I need to be the narrator.
But the concept of the book is definitely my speed. And so, yeah, The Courage to be Disliked audiobook.
I love that. Y'all's are related to our theme today. Mine is not. I was up till 5 o'clock in the morning doing a movie marathon with my friend. And they were showing me their favorite movies. And then I let them pick a current movie. And the whole point is to get to know them and what they like, but also to watch things I wouldn't necessarily watch and be inspired in that way and open myself up to other genres and other stories. Like I had never seen a Clint Eastwood film. And I'm like, oh, this motherfucker was kind of cool.
What movie was it?
You know, it was called The Outlaw Josie Wales. And basically he was getting revenge on some people that came and killed his family into, cowboy picture. Now I have this frame of reference. Now my view is a little bit broader. So I really enjoyed doing that movie marathon. Then next week, I'm going to show them my favorite films and pick a movie that they wouldn't necessarily watch, just, for that exposure.
Oh, I love that.
That's what it's inspired me.
I love that.
Wow. I love this episode. I'm so glad that we're able to get into the deep stuff, the real stuff, the hard stuff. So what a fantastic episode. Thank y'all for listening to this episode and every episode of the Creative Cut Up podcast. If you like what you hear, please share, please rate, please review. The reviews are really, really helpful. Thank you, especially 5-star reviews for us so that we can keep doing this thing. And we will see you next week.
Yay.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Creative Cut Up podcast, a lively and honest space for storytellers that sits at the intersection of craft, business, and independence. Listen to us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you dig it, subscribe, rate, review, and please tell a friend. If you need help getting back into your creative practice, check out the Creative Comeback Workbook and Journal. You can also join our newsletter and our We Create Daily community, both of which provide even more resources and opportunities to thrive creatively at thecreatedaily.com. And lastly, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn at The Create Daily. Ever wonder how a novel went from the page to the screen? How an entire film derived from a great magazine article? Or how you get the life rights to tell the story of that fascinating person you met or historical figure you're obsessed with? Learn the process in our new on-demand course called Based On: How to Adapt Books, Articles, and Real-Life Stories for Film and TV. Led by myself, Felicia Pride, and Dria Rowland, Honeychild's creative executive and co-host of the Creative Cut Up podcast, you'll learn the process of optioning and developing IP for adaptation, the nuances of 3 different types of adaptations: books, articles, life rights, all the development jargon, what Honeychild looks for and how we source, search, and track IP, plus the answers to all of your burning questions. We'll break down the ins and outs of adapting IP and more. You'll get immediate access to our on-demand course for 6 months upon registration. So sign up today at thecreatedaily.com.